I will be talking about the sociological preoccupation of artist Thierry Geoffroy, Colonel, and I have prepared a presentation that will introduce you very fast to his very big artistic production and very diverse artistic production. I have been focusing on his early production that has to do with photography, and this is what I immediately linked to this seminar as being visual anthropology. And then I will move towards the later periods of his production and recent project as well, very shortly, to show how he developed from basically being a photographer, documenting the reality around him, and then suddenly stopping to take pictures, but still being a photographer. And this I found very interesting, and I wanted to share this with you because I found it very opening towards questions about how to go about the collaboration with the subject matter that you're actually trying to capture, sharing the voice with the people you're trying to portray, and other questions that we have been touching upon also in the earlier presentations today and yesterday. I'm opening also a question about how much this artistic praxis is close to anthropology or sociology. I discussed with Carsten, and it is mostly sociological aspect that interests him. But we can start, and then you can ask me questions during my presentation. But now you have an idea how I'm going to construct it a bit chronologically. Yes, and I also have, Carsten asked me to bring a CV of what has been published as well, but he's been doing some things, published things as well. You can see it on page number 5, otherwise it's printed a CV, so you can, if it gets a bit boring what I'm saying, you can look at the paper. Otherwise I have some books and things that you can look at maybe after the presentation, so you don't get disturbed. Okay, this is just to say that I'm a curator. I work with a lot of different projects and different artists. Many times I work with the artists for a longer period. And this gives me a chance to get to know the artist in a way that I also can develop projects together with them. I will not talk much about that because we don't have so much time. This is very early, in '88. We see pictures of... I better sit down so you can see. Tourists in different parts of the world, and you can clearly see that he still has the photographic elements of colors and directions in the picture and how they're constructed and angled. You can see a pattern in that if I show them more of them. The texture, the colors, the flesh, all these decisions are very much artistic or like a photographer. He thinks like a photographer, but he's capturing a very. He's giving a very critical view of tourists and tourism. Then he moves to Denmark, and he's originally French, but travels for many years, also with his wife, and at some point they come back to Denmark, and now he lives in Denmark. So he's in Denmark now and photographing the surroundings, I would say, as being a tourist himself in Denmark, like the other point of view. And he's very close to his to the people he takes pictures of. It's very difficult to get this kind of pictures, which makes them very strong photographically. And suddenly we see a pattern that interests him as cultural meetings also. You will see later there are other projects also. So you see there is a connection, there is a way of it's almost intimidating. It's very close to the subject matter that he wants to capture. And the flesh, it makes it almost aggressive sometimes. So, as I said, the cultural meetings is something that he would be framing, as you said, Tom, what you want to frame as a focus in the projects. This would be something that was appearing more and more. So this is basically some examples of the two series of the photos. That's how he would call it. Suddenly he stopped, and he wanted to make his role as a photographer more proactive, I guess. So he made a series on with immigrants. This is something that you might know, Frederike, this project. It has also been linked to many of the intercultural discussions earlier. So this project is looking into the photo albums. We talked about private photo albums before, how they can be seen as material as well. So instead of taking pictures, he would take pictures from others, from their photo albums. And the way he constructs them, there are 4 elements always on the picture, and they follow this pattern, which is after, before, before, after. All these people are immigrants, and they would have a picture from their life before coming to Denmark and after, and in this way they would construct a frame, a format. And they will also, there will be a text. So this also suddenly links to the more analytic way of working with the photography than artistic, because you have the name, you register the name, they are born, where they are born, which year they are born, their profession, and when they came to Denmark. So I don't know if you can see, but it says here. And this is very important because he established a system that he would follow on each of these works, artworks. So suddenly his artwork, they become a useful material that can be analyzed. It can be analyzed to see how diverse the immigrant group is actually. It can be analyzed to see how what are their dreams, so where they come from, the difference from their life before and today. And they will choose the pictures. So there is also an element of inclusion in the self-critical way. So what do you choose? And I will just go through. These are lacking the text, but you can aesthetically see the concept. So they all follow before, after, before. And it's very interesting to see what kind of pictures they choose. And also what has been their life before. I don't know these people. Thierry knows them, all of them. Spent a lot of time with each of them to look at the photo albums. And you can imagine that the fact that they actually give him the photos for good. He gets the real photo. It's not something you can pass on with the USB. It's a real document. It shows that he actually spends a lot of time with each of these people, and they end up giving him a gift almost. So this is the person I know. She has been very rich before in Africa before she came to Denmark. And you can see the different. You can read also why they end up in Denmark. Is it because of love or war? This person became homosexual after coming to Denmark. you can read a lot of things. So the interesting thing for me, and the reason I show so many of them and very fast, is also to show the quantity, how actually these artworks can be studied as a piece of a document, anthropologically, sociologically. And this is so this was one. So this is another project also where when he's stepping out of stopping to work with taking pictures and now looking into other people's pictures. This is another way to work with other people's pictures. This is not, it's still private photos. They have not end up in album yet. It's before they end up in album. This is in Thailand. He buys pictures from them and he made an exhibition. He would sit in different spots where people would come to deliver their negatives, and he would ask them to give him or sell 4 pictures, photos, and they would have to, on one of them, they would have to be present. So there is always the person owning, the owner of the picture is always in the artwork. And an interesting thing is that he would ask them to write themselves on the back side of the picture, and this is also something that is used in when you analyze archives, that you have the source of the document on the back side. So I found it also very interesting. It also includes the information about how long time they are in Thailand. Suddenly these each of these pictures, well, so it would always be a person in this corner. This is the owner of the picture, and you can see how different reasons for traveling to Thailand people have. Some of them like flowers, and others snakes. Others are, you can see, retired, traveling with husband for 6 months. And so this one is from Switzerland and travels for 1 year. And this person is 20, Swedish, studies economy and travels for 6 months. This one is a sailor in the American Navy. And 1 week. And this is... yeah, and so on. So again, it becomes he's scanning a field. If you talk about the field, artistic field, in an artistic way, he's attacking a big field and scanning it in a systematic way that he has been building up as photographer. He would choose the other 3. So he would, you know, they have to be one of that they are on, and then so these are also a little bit of aesthetic decisions. So I'm again showing them fast just to show the fact that they are many. And I have this in the book. If somebody is interested, you can come to me and take a look. So. His first way of working with stepping out of taking pictures was to use other people's pictures, archive or albums. Then the second step, it goes further, would be then to make situations in a public space where the act of taking picture with the camera or something becomes a performative act, and the public space act. So we have on this picture, I will try to explain. They all gathered. So this is the booth, like a photo booth in many of the stations, like the one we had in the National Museum, just without plastic surgery, the normal one we have. And he would stop people on the street and ask them if they would like to take part in this. You could call it a game or an intervention in a public space, and ask them how much Danish they should write. And the interesting thing for me in this question was that they themselves should define based on what. They would ask, but how can I measure? They would say, but what do you feel? It's again a serious investigation, but with asking a question which is poetic in itself, because how much do you feel Danish? So it was an example of wanting to, there's something absurd in that question already, and this artistic approach, but still you can analyze it afterwards as what did people feel. I mean, in that moment, that year in Denmark. This artwork, as it is, as you can see it here in the corner, is now at Heart Museum. They bought it in Herning, so for those of you who are from Jutland. And this is the Danish cultural minister now, that one that feels 100% Danish. And then what he says here, it means that he says that he obviously thinks he's 100% Danish, but he said, but I don't know if it's good or bad. So this kind of thing that it starts. A similar intervention technique or method of working was done in a public space, where he would ask people to swap clothes with him because he wanted to become Danish. So he wanted to look like a Danish. So he would ask people let's swap clothes. What I found interesting as a method for him being an original photographer is that he asks them to take picture of him in a very improvised studio. We talked about studios earlier in the National Museum, and this clothes and costumes, and this is an improvised studio. So he would stop a person. He said, I'm researching, can I borrow your clothes and take a picture? And then he would say, yes, this man. And then he would bring him to the area with the studio is, and then they would change clothes. And actually his clothes is this, you can see, with this silk jacket is the same. And he would do it with different people, and also girls. So they would become a photographer of him. And yeah, collaboration. The first picture says, how do you think you can become Danish just by taking on clothes? You have to talk Danish, you have to speak Danish as well. And this one says, I have to, then he said, I have to look like a Viking. No, you have to look like a Viking. And then Thereza said, but how do I do that? So they would instruct him. This is an important element also, that he would ask them to instruct him to how to stand and how to act, and so suddenly it provokes the whole line of thought about how the Danish think that the Danish person should stand, look like, and so on. Okay. One last example of these interventions in the city is in clothes. It's when he swapped clothes with different immigrants, because he had a study of which kind of immigrants are the most easy to integrate. So he would swap clothes with different immigrants, and then it becomes a picture. It becomes a Polaroid. So this is what I mean when I say he's a photographer, but he doesn't take pictures anymore. So from these interventions in the public space and creating a situation where you actually get people to act in a way that they would not normally act, is then leading to a even more further third step away from the traditional photography, which would be something about, I don't know how to call it exactly, but it has to do with creating communities and shared spaces. So to explain you what I mean, I will show you this project. The pictures from Thailand, from tourists, they were exhibited in Denmark once they came. Instead of making a normal exhibition, he would, apart from exhibiting it on the wall, he would also make an announcement that everybody who comes into the show, they actually have to bring their own tourist photos. In that way, he would create a shared space so that nobody is naked, everybody is sharing something. They are also critique towards their own way of being tourist. So they would bring it on their body, their clothes, like here, or like here, or like here. And then they would become a picture. It becomes a Polaroid. So or here, and there would be a door where they would check. So only people who just want to look without sharing anything, they would not get in. So only people who actually are willing to take part. This is what I mean with the community idea. This idea of community is very linked to what we know today from Facebook or other social medias, where you have to have a code to get in. You have to share some of your things in order to see other people's images. And it also links to Facebook because it has an element of writing and the picture. So, and you can see on one wall there was an exhibition of tourist photos that you saw earlier, and on the other was a wall, like in Facebook you have a wall. People would come and this wall would be changing all the time, because people would come, put their picture and text that they brought as a visa to get in, and this would be dynamic. I found this very interesting because it is actually what we see strategically is behind the social media. So with text, picture, and very simple way of mobile changeable element. The community building photography as a tool for building communities, and pictures of oneself on oneself, if you wear your picture on you. It has to do with ID cards. This project has to do with ID cards, but it also has to do with building community. And it has to do with the idea of being foreigner in Denmark. This is a project called the Art Delegation. It's artists from different countries. You can see the colors, and they all carry a ID card. So this ID is also a photographic way of representing something. You represent what is. It's a picture of yourself on yourself. So, and it's about accessibility. You can have a certain a different way of moving into the context. This is a critical project because it also, of course, is a comment to the lack of visibility of other cultures than the Danish one in the Danish art world. So this group would go and visit different venues, exhibitions, institutions, people, and debate on what they see, but from the point of view of different cultures and the critical point of view of being immigrant or artist, foreign artist. And you can see, I'll just go through them so you can see the energy, what is the performative aspect of it. Here we have Mikkel Bo at the new Department of Media. And so, and this is at the Parliament. In the Parliament there is a huge art collection, and here we are debating. For example, this is a portrait of Anders Fogh Rasmussen, and it is one of the politicians in Denmark, and we debate the colors and why blue, and how come the blue can become one party color, not the other, and the things that you might not spot if you don't have this aspect of being a foreigner. This is what's interesting for us. And many different places. It's a massive. Here we even went to he's a editor of the photo editor in the main newspaper in Denmark. So how do you? Here we discuss actually photography. We discuss about how the photography is used in the press, and what kind of manipulation is being done when you use photography in a newspaper. Also, from the point of view of art, we had two Arabs, one from Bosnia, one from Latin America, one from. So it's an interesting discussion to see what do they think. And he opened up his office, and we could get in. It's not because of the ID card, of course. You have to do a little bit more to get access, but still, it's ID card gives this group an official identity, group identity, that makes it possible. And I must say that I'm now, when I go through these pictures, we can see that we have been many places, so the activities are documented as well. And this becomes also a piece of photography, artwork, I would say. This is in the DR, in the national television, so we are taking many different elements of what has to do with visual representation. This is in a church. The church artists, they talk about how they make art for churches. This is in Louisiana, about Arab, it was an exhibition about Arabic, Arabische Nu, the Arabian Now. So we brought the real people from the area in Copenhagen who are really Arab to discuss the Arab Now as they wanted to present it in Louisiana, and so on. So this is the two last slides I'm going to show. I wanted to again bring this artist into discussion that we're having here because, as I told, he moved from taking pictures of tourists to be taking pictures as tourists, to take pictures, to not take them, but to collect pictures from the other people who are tourists, and exhibiting them in a way that you can see here. This woman, she's carrying her own picture while she's looking at other pictures. This strategic move I find very avant-garde and for photographer, and the similar development in if we talk about immigrant issues, so tourists and immigrants. From taking pictures of immigrants, you ask them to open their home, open their albums, create with him, construct a story, acting in the public space, interacting with people, being himself an immigrant and playing, and at the end creating a community of immigrants who are actually moving around and becoming an artwork. So that was my presentation, and I have some more theoretical reflections on what is going on, and many of them actually link to your presentations from yesterday and today, and I'm very happy about that. So I'm not very far in my choice of presentation. Of course, it has to do with, about the relationship between the artist and the subject matter. It has to do with how to use the archive or archive material, how to make the photography as a stage, staging the photography as an act. How it has to do with how photography can be used as a tool for making communities. Mede Senbu was supposed to talk about something similar, actually, but she couldn't be here. It has to do with public and private. What is who is owning the pictures? What is private picture? What is public picture? And also I want to mention one thing is that in the 1990s is when. This, for example, this TV program that he was acting in a public space, it was commissioned by DR2. It's a national channel in Denmark, and in that moment, his artistic practice suddenly became much bigger. It came out to everybody, not only artists. It came out to many people, and this is also an interesting thing to discuss because suddenly his artistic strategies and so on become. Are interpreted in different way because they reach out to people who are not necessarily in the field of visual art or sociology or anthropology. And this is about involving the people he's portraiting, either by letting them choose the pictures or letting them take pictures of him, is something that I find very relevant to the discussion of who is telling the story. And the idea of art and facts and art, with this 100%, Of course, it's not 100%. It's not about 60%, but percentage is always it's a number. So it's a game of between art and factual things. How can you create an interesting tension between those two? And also how you can create the games or the situations, or it's a game-like situation or intervention that's, because there is a set of rules, suddenly something can happen in that game, let's say that. But what happens inside of the game, it's as real as anything else. So what happens when he creates a community of people running around with these things? It's a rule. It's a kind of game we do. It's a performance, but this performance creates a real interaction. It creates a real discussion. So I'm interested also in seeing how these created, constructed, staged situations can provoke real and true and authentic content. I had a small video, but I don't think it's necessary to show, and the video would be the one with the changing clothes, just to show the humor that he's using, because he's very funny, and this is also how he reaches people. This would be another presentation about how to use humor as a tool to approach and get closer to people. And this is something I also find interesting, but it's another chapter, I think. Thank you very much.